Welcome to the 10 and 10 podcast. I am your host, Joseph James. And today I have with me Joan Hibdon, who is a professional coach, speaker, and author who helps individuals realize their own personal journey of success, I'd say.
I think that's
would that
fair.
be accurate?
Sure,
Yeah?
I think that's fair.
Now, you have a very unique approach, different than I'd say going to a Tony Robbins event or working with, one of those motivational gurus. Your approach is very personal. Tell me about how you work with somebody from the get-go.
So my approach is very personal. What I like to do is I like to understand who it is that I'm working with and what it is that they need so that I can tap into and actually look at creating the outcome that they want through their coaching or through their leadership development or things like that. So I do a lot of tailoring for my clients.
See, I find that very refreshing because I've read a ton of leadership books, business books. I've gone to the seminars, blah, blah, blah. And for me, it always seemed like they were all regurgitating, this is what right looks like, this is what success is, this is what leadership is. You're the first person I've actually heard say, no, I'm going to talk to you first and find out what your journey, is supposed to look like. And that is fascinating.
Why is that fascinating?
That I haven't heard anybody approach it that way before.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that we're all unique individuals, right? There's almost 7 billion people on the earth. None of us are like the other. I may have some structure. I may have some standard approaches that do work, but they may not work for everybody. So I first of all want to get to know the person and understand what works for them and understand who they are and what they're all about before I dive in and say, here's what we're going to do. I have a number of tools and a lot of different background. And so I actually want to connect with the person on the human level and on a personal level before I tell them, and actually I don't tell them, before we discover what their journey is going to be.
That's amazing. It's such an intelligent and authentic way to approach human development. Yeah. So how did you get to where you are today? What inspired you to become Joni?
So I've had an amazing career. I have worked in the human resources field for my entire career. I accidented into human resources just by virtue of my very first interview in the corporate world. And as I was speaking with the person who was interviewing me, I thought, wow, your job is to talk with people all day and get to know them and figure out what the right job match is. I want to do that someday. I was very naive about what human resources was. But at that point in my life, I decided to pursue that intuition that's where I wanted to go, and ended up pursuing my education through that avenue and worked in human resources in all aspects of humans, whether it was employee relations or total rewards, learning and development, all of that, for my entire career on a worldwide basis and with a lot of different industries, and I feel very blessed to have accidented into this career because I love humans. I love how complex we are. I love how unique we are, how messy we are, how gifted we are. And so I love to play with kind of the whole human nature to figure out how to make somebody a better version of themselves if that's what they want to be.
I love that. And you use one of my favorite words, play. That is such a great word, especially for adults, because I don't think adults do that enough, or if at all.
Either. I don't think so either.
Where did that idea come from in your life?
I think some of it came from in certainly the latter part of my career. There was a woman that I worked with who was all about play, and she was sassy, and I used the word radical when she was working in our corporation at the time, and my boss said, don't use radical, that's not a good word for corporate. But she was very playful and very provocative. And there was something about her, there was a little bit of an edginess that I loved about her because she was able to evoke transformation in the business that I worked in, at the time with her. And I thought, I love that. I want to do more of that.
So when you're working with a client, how do you introduce, because you work with leaders. So I'd love to be a fly on the wall listening to you talk to some, CEO or big corporate guy as you introduce the concept of play. Is this well received, or how does that go down?
It's not automatically well received. There's some caution in that, like,
Sure.
What does that mean? Because I'm leaving it very open to whatever we're going to discover. But I do set some clear parameters as we're developing our relationship on what it's going to look like to work together. So if we were to work together, I would say, what kind of a relationship do you want to develop? And I will right off the bat say, for me, I want to put confidential out there, because as a coach, my job is to keep everything confidential. You can share anything that you want with anybody you want, but that's my number one. Number two is I'd like to have a relationship that is transparent and authentic. And number three, I'd like to have a relationship that's a little playful. How does that feel for you? And then the client will say, well, it feels okay. I don't know what that means exactly. And I'll say, well, I will always ask you permission. If you're willing to play, I'll always say, are you open to playing? And most people haven't turned me down yet.
I have a great visual of you bringing some guy in a three-piece to a playground and putting them on the swings or something. But tell me what play really means.
It is dependent upon the person. So as you were saying, some big guy, going to a playground and playing on the swings, one of an early client that I had was a big guy. And in our coaching relationship, he was talking about how much stress he was feeling. And I was listening to him of all the things he was doing and everything he had going on. And I said, okay, so I have a challenge for you. And he said, what's that? And I said, I want you to go to a yoga class. Oh. And he laughed so loud, and he said, oh my gosh, my wife is going to laugh her off. And I said, why is that? And he said, she's been trying to get me to go to yoga for years because she thinks it'll help me calm down and get more centered. And he said, but I'm taking you up on that challenge. I'm going to go. And he went, and his report out the next time he came, he said, I felt like a big giant oaf in that yoga class, but I felt really good. And what it did is it began to help him understand how to find ways to center and ground himself in his own way and in his own element. And so that's an example of playful.
That's awesome. So you work with them to set the intentions, the goal of where they're going. Is that pretty rigid, or does it evolve over time?
It evolves over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a woman who came to me one time, and really what she wanted was better time management and things like that. What we worked on a lot was how she could delegate. There's a lot of things that she wasn't doing, but the delegation, stopping working when she needed to, things like that. We spent a lot of time on her personal life, because that's where it was causing her pain. The pain was, the time management was she wasn't getting enough time with her kids. Mm. So she was working on the management skill of time management, but the pain was about her kids. And so we spent a lot of time talking about that piece, and eventually we unlocked the time management so that she could recognize what she was putting herself through.
That's terrific. I love that you keep such a fluid relationship in what you do. Now, who are the people that come to you? Are they mainly individuals, or it seems like it would behoove like a company to hire you to come in and almost work with the people that may be reluctant?
It's typically the company.
Really?
I do work with individuals, open to individuals coming to me directly, but it's typically organizations that are building out a leadership development program of some sort, and coaching is part of it. Or I might be working with a client in doing some leadership facilitation skills, where I'll speak to a whole group of leaders about something, and the company will come and say, I've got a few people on my team that I think could use some coaching. Would you be open to doing that? It's typically that.
Well, that sounds a lot better than that scene from Office Space. Although I must say, you have such a wonderful and positive energy. If you were still in HR, I think you'd be exactly the person I would want to fire me.
I would make it very soft, and you'd feel great.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I am better than this place.
Exactly.
So, what is the end result? Obviously, they're becoming stronger leaders and whatnot. But from a corporate standpoint, the businesses hire you for a reason. I doubt they care much about their family time and whatnot.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Right. They're talking about bottom line. How does what you do affect the bottom line?
So how it does affect the bottom line is I help leaders to figure out how to lead from the inside, so that externally their impact is much greater. It's from a behavioral standpoint. So as an example, if somebody comes to me and they're really rough around the edges and they're not operating with their team very well, they're not going to get the best out of their team. And so from a bottom line standpoint, organizations may see high turnover, lower levels of productivity, lower levels of engagement. And by working with me, and as I'm working with leaders, when they begin to turn the dial on who they're being and how they're showing up as a leader, we actually do see the ROI of lower turnover, higher engagement, higher productivity. People are happier. They're on fire. The people who work for leaders who care about them and who are showing, there's a number of words, but who inspire them, they'll walk to the ends of the earth for that leader.
Oh, yeah.
If there's a leader, and so that's what we do. I spend a lot of time helping leaders figure out the best versions of themselves so that it has a behavioral impact on their employees and ultimately impacts the results in the bottom line.
I can absolutely see why you are so good at what you do, because this has been the fastest 10 minutes of my life. This conversation has just gone so well. I don't want it to stop, but we got to do what we got to do. So if you are interested in how to improve your company's bottom line, you may want to reach out to Joni, because Joni has the most unique approach to business success I've ever encountered. And it's been such a pleasure having her. If people are going to reach out to you, how do they find you? So
how you find me is my website, which is www.jdhInsights.com. That is jdhInsights is the name of my business. You can reach me there. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, so a lot of different places.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing this with me today.
You're welcome.
Please reach out. This has been an incredible conversation with the one and only Joan Hibdon.
Thanks, Joseph. It's been fun.